Okay, so let's get into this. When you think of the Library of Alexandria, you can't just picture a building full of books. It was so much more than that. It was the ancient world's first true knowledge hub. I mean, imagine a place that tried to collect every single book ever written.
It was a huge statement, a real cultural power move by the Ptolemaic dynasty, who were ruling Egypt back then. This was all happening in the 3rd century BCE,
Yeah.
before the Common Era.
Right, so King Ptolemy, I basically used the library to say, look at us, look at how powerful and smart our kingdom is. And the location in Alexandria was key, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Alexandria was this major port city, a total crossroads for the entire ancient world. Trade, people, ideas, everything flowed through there.
And the library itself was part of something bigger.
Exactly. It was connected to an institution called the Museum, which means a place for the muses. The whole point was to get the smartest people in the world to come to Alexandria. The mission was simple on paper, get all human knowledge in one place. But actually doing it was, well, it was a massive undertaking.
And that's where the story gets kind of wild. Their collection strategy was aggressive.
Aggressive is a good word for it, maybe even ruthless. If you sailed a ship into Alexandria's harbor, you could expect a visit.
So officials would just board every single ship.
Every single one. They were looking for scrolls, for books they didn't already have. And if they found something new, they took it. No questions asked.
They just took it.
Well, they take it to be copied by hand.
Yeah.
But, and this is the amazing part, sometimes the library kept the original and gave the copy back to the owner.
Wow. So it's kind of like intellectual property theft, but for a good cause.
For the good of civilization, you could say. And you have to remember what these books were. They were scrolls made of papyrus.
Which is a really fragile material, right? From a plant that only grew along the Nile.
Extremely fragile. And it's so important to the story. We're talking about, at its peak, maybe 400,000 to 700,000 scrolls.
That number is just staggering. And every single word on every single one of those scrolls was written by hand.
The amount of human labor is almost impossible to wrap your head around today. And it wasn't just one subject. It was everything. Mathematics, medicine, poetry, history, you name it, they had it.
Okay, so you've collected 500,000 scrolls. Now what? I'm just
Exactly.
picturing a giant, disorganized pile of paper.
Yeah.
Useless, right? All that knowledge will be lost if you couldn't find anything.
That was the next huge challenge. And a scholar named Climacus stepped up to solve it. He created the first major system to organize all of it, a catalog called the Penekes.
The Penekes. So this was like the world's first card catalog? How did it work?
It was a masterpiece of organization. First, he divided all the works into big categories, like history, law, literature, that kind of thing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then within each category, he listed the authors alphabetically. And under each author, he listed all their books, sometimes even with the first line of the text to make sure you had the right one.
So it wasn't just a list of what they owned, it was a map, a way to navigate all that knowledge.
It was a complete game changer. It's basically the same system modern libraries use today, dividing knowledge by subject, then by author. That all started there.
And once they had that system in place, that's when the real magic could happen, the discoveries.
Right. Because now scholars had the resources, the tools, and just as importantly, the quiet space they needed to think. You had all these brilliant minds working together, sharing ideas. That's how science moves forward.
Let's talk about one of the most famous examples, Eratosthenes. He was a librarian there, and he figured out how big the Earth is. That sounds impossible. How on earth did he do that?
Pure genius. He used observation and math. He knew that on the summer solstice in a city called Syene, the sun was directly overhead at noon. If you looked down a deep well, the sun would light up the very bottom. No shadows.
Okay, but in Alexandria where he was, there was a shadow at the same time.
Correct. He measured the angle of that shadow and found it was about 7.2 degrees. He knew the distance between the two cities, so he realized that the 7.2-degree difference was because of the Earth's curve.
Ah, I see. So he just did the math from there.
He did the math. Since 7.2 degrees is about 1/50th of a full circle, 360 degrees, he multiplied the distance between the cities by 50.
And he got the circumference of the Earth.
And his answer was incredibly close. He calculated about 24,000 miles. It's just mind-blowing for that time. He proved the Earth was round and measured it.
And he wasn't the only one making huge breakthroughs.
Not at all. You had Aristarchus of Samos, who proposed that the Earth revolves around the sun.
Hundreds of years before Copernicus.
Exactly. And even Archimedes, the famous inventor, is thought to have studied in Alexandria. It was, without a doubt, the scientific capital of the ancient world.
So we've talked about the library, but you mentioned the museum. It sounds like it was much more than just a library. It was like a a university campus.
That's the perfect way to describe it. The museum actually provided scholars with free meals and housing.
So they were basically paid to think.
That's it. They were salaried researchers. They didn't have to worry about a day job. Their only job was to research, write, and teach.
That is the dream for any academic. And the buildings themselves were designed for it.
The whole place was built for learning. They had these long, covered walkways called colonnades where people could walk and debate ideas. And since there was no electricity, all the rooms were designed to get as much natural sunlight as possible.
But none of that knowledge would have survived without the people who were constantly copying the scrolls.
A huge team of professional scribes. That was their full-time job every single day. Just sitting there with reed pens and ink made from soot and water, meticulously copying texts.
And I find the quality control part of this fascinating. They weren't just copying.
No, they were editing. They were the world's first fact-checkers, in a way. They'd compare different versions of the same book from different places to find and fix errors that had crept in over time. They were trying to create the most accurate version of a text.
Which was so important because Alexandria was this melting pot of different cultures and languages.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And that led to another one of the library's huge projects, translation. They started a massive effort to translate important works from other languages like Egyptian or Persian into Greek.
And the most famous example of that is the translation of the Hebrew Bible.
The Septuagint. The story goes that they brought in 72 scholars, put them in separate rooms to translate it, and they all came back with the exact same text.
Probably not true, but it shows how important the project was.
It does. And the impact was enormous. It spread so many different religious and philosophical ideas across the whole empire.
Which makes the end of the story even more tragic. People often think the library burned down in one big fire, but it wasn't that simple.
No, it was a slow death, a decline that happened over centuries.
Julius Caesar's fire in 48 BCE is the one everyone knows about. That definitely destroyed a lot of scrolls in warehouses by the docks. But that wasn't the end.
Not even close. The bigger problem was neglect. As the Roman Empire's focus changed, the funding just dried up. The scrolls are valuable, so they got stolen. And papyrus doesn't last forever. Without scribes constantly repairing and recopying them, they just rotted.
And then you had wars and religious conflicts with people deliberately destroying texts they didn't agree with.
By the 4th or 5th century, it was basically gone. The collection, the funding, the influence, all of it.
And the consequences of that loss are just devastating. We lost so much knowledge forever.
It's estimated that maybe 90% of all ancient Greek literature just vanished, gone. Plays by famous writers we know existed, but we'll never get to read them.
It's like a whole section of human history was just erased.
Then it set us back for centuries. Scientists in the Renaissance had to rediscover things about astronomy and medicine that the scholars in Alexandria already knew.
So the big lesson here is just how fragile knowledge really is, and how important it is to protect it.
Thankfully, that idea didn't die. In 2002, a new library opened in Alexandria, the Bibliotheca Alexandrina.
It's that incredible modern building shaped like a giant sun disk, right?
That's the one. It was built to honor the spirit of the original. It collects millions of books and digital files carrying on that mission.
The ancient library was really a blueprint then. It proved that when you bring knowledge and smart people together, you can unlock humanity's potential.
It really showed the world why we have to preserve our history for the future.
And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What amazing discoveries are we missing out on today because of a scroll that turned to dust 2,000 years ago?
It's a very profound thought.
See you next time.